What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to show you exactly how much money a real estate investor makes. And if you stick around till the end of the video, I'm going to share with you how much I've made over the last 10 years of investing in real estate. So with that being said, let's jump into it. To get started, I want to cover what a real estate investor is and the 4 different ways that they make money. A real estate investor is someone that goes out and finds a piece of property that they think would be an awesome piece of property to rent out to a tenant. They then purchase this property and take on all of the responsibility of the taxes, the insurance, maintenance, any other expenses that are involved with the property. That also sometimes includes the utilities. Once they've purchased this property, they then advertise this property after making whatever fixes that it needs to a potential tenant. They then negotiate with that tenant, determine rents, and put them under a lease. All of these expenses go out for the property, and then hopefully the tenant pays rent, and whatever difference there is in what the tenant has paid in rent from all of their expenses is their profit. Now, this profit is called cash flow. However, cash flow is just one of 4 ways that real estate investors make money on a property. The next way they make money on a property is called appreciation. For example's sake, let's say that they bought a property for $500,000. This property historically has always gone up in value. This is called appreciation. Appreciation in the United States is anywhere from 3 to 5% on average. That means if they bought the property for $500,000 and they have a 3% appreciation in the year, hopefully that property value goes up by $15,000 in that year. Now, if it was going to be a 5% appreciation in that year, that property would go up by $25,000. Here's the catch with appreciation. There's no guarantee. There have been years where certain properties have appreciated by 10%. There have also been years where properties have gone down in value by 10%. You just need to understand that overall, on average in the United States, property values consistently go up 3 to 5%. And that's been the data over an extended period of time, even though some years it's up, some years it's down. The unique thing about appreciation is this isn't money into your pocket. This is money into the value of the property, which is called equity. This means that every year, if you are getting that consistent appreciation, you're getting more and more value or equity in your property. So if it appreciates from the $500,000 to the $515,000 or the $525,000, you now have more equity in the property, but unless you refinance to pull that out or sell the property, you can't actually touch that money. It's locked up in the bank that is your property. The next kind of return you can get investing in real estate is called principal paydown. However, you can only get this if you've taken out a loan on the property. There are some people that invest in real estate and they just pay the full amount in cash. What principal paydown is every month if you've taken out a mortgage, and let's say you've put 25% down on the property, every month that mortgage, a portion of it goes to interest and a portion of it goes to principal paydown. So even though you're spending that money from the rents that hopefully came in, a portion of it is going into that equity in your property because it's paying down the principal that you owe. So if you put $25,000 down on a $100,000 property, but year one you paid off a couple $1,000s in principal paydown, now instead of the $25,000 down payment that you also have equity from maybe let's say $2,000 in principal paydown. So now that's $27,000. And on that $100,000 property, if you got that 3% appreciation, that's another $3,000 in equity that you have locked up in your property. So principal paydown and appreciation are both value or equity that you're getting in the property. But again, you can't access that unless you refinance and get a different loan and pull that equity out, or you sell the property at that profit after your expenses so that you can actually claim those gains. So we've covered cash flow, we've covered appreciation, we've covered principal paydown. However, there is one more way the real estate investors make money. And this is a little bit more gray area when it comes to making money, because in reality, they're just deferring spending money on taxes. You do this by taking advantage of something called depreciation. Every single year, the government allows you to depreciate a property that has been purchased. They're saying, hey, we're assuming that this property is going down in value because of time and wear and tear. And this is true. You do have general maintenance on a property, and so it is going to go down in value when it comes to maintenance things that need to be done. However, the way that the government has structured it, you've got appreciation where property values are going up every year, but the government is allowing you to depreciate that property. So even though your property is actually going up in value, and obviously you have maintenance and expenses, they say, hey, you can take this property and you can depreciate it over a 27.5-year schedule. So if you depreciate it over a 27.5-year schedule, after 27.5 years, if you bought the property for $500,000, by the end of that, you will have taken $500,000 off of your taxable income, because they're saying, hey, every year you get to take this small chunk that you can reverse or take away from what your taxable income is so that you're paying less in taxes. The other really neat thing that the government allows you to do is something called cost segregation. And what this is you can actually accelerate that depreciation. You can have an engineer come into your property with an accountant and say, hey, these carpets, they're not going to last 27.5 years. They're only going to last 5. And these lighting fixtures, only 5. And this landscape or exterior or whatever it is, they're only going to last 3 or 1. And it gives you the ability to break down every little part of the property and accelerate the depreciation. So instead of taking it over 27.5 years, you can take a good chunk of it just over 1 or 3 or a 5-year period. I'm sure a lot of you are saying, Chandler, depreciation isn't necessarily income. That's just making it so that you're kicking down the road the taxes that you have to pay. And that's very true. However, if you use this strategy correctly, when you're having large earning years, you can accelerate that depreciation so you're not paying taxes now, and you'll never actually have to pay taxes on these properties until you sell them. And for me, my strategy as a real estate investor has been, hey, I can defer these taxes forever. And so if I never sell my real estate and I just hold on to it and I pay it all off over time, now I'll consistently have cash flow coming in. I'll have all of this equity that if I want to refinance, I can pull it out that way, but I'll never sell the property. And this will put me in a situation where I've been able to defer all of these taxes, and I'll just hold on to this property until the day that I die. At that time, hopefully I've been able to take out a ton of that equity via borrowing against the property. I've also made a ton of money in cash flow. And so it's a massive win for me. And then I can turn over these properties to my kids. And are they going to care about these additional taxes? No, they're not, because they're now going to own this property that's paid off, that they can either refinance themselves to pull equity out of, that they have so many different options and that are consistently delivering cash flow, or they could choose to sell them. And if they sell them, they can reclaim all of that, but they're still going to have a massive profit. They're just going to have a tax bill with that profit. Now, there's so much more that goes into that when it comes to the end of your life and estate taxes and all of that I'm not going to dive into this video. But for me, I love this strategy because taxes and depreciation and accelerating that depreciation gives me the ability to pay way less on taxes, which I do view as increasing my cash flow right now, because it's freeing up a ton more cash that I can spend on the things that are important to me now. Now that we've covered the 4 different ways that you can make money investing in real estate, I want to give you a real life example that I personally have had, and I'm going to do it with the first duplex that I ever purchased. Almost 10 years ago, I purchased my first ever duplex for $95,000. I purchased it with a 4.75% interest rate and 25% down. That means I needed to put down $23,750. When I first purchased this property, it was renting for about $950. However, right away, we realized they were doing things wrong. We were able to increase the rents to $1,400 and find an awesome tenant for the upstairs and for the downstairs. This now put me in a scenario where I was cash flowing almost $6,000 every single year. So from my $23,750 investment, I was getting cash flow of $6,000 every single year. So that was putting me at almost a 25% return just in my cash flow alone. On top of that, I had an awesome loan where I was getting consistent principal pay down. I was also taking advantage of the tax benefits and getting appreciation on this property. I don't want to go through every year of the last 9 years with this property, so we're going to fast forward to now and give you what what the overall returns on this property have been. First off, let's talk about the cash flow on this property. I did some ballpark math and I assume I've made about $54,000 and some change just in cash flow on this property over the last 9 years. The thing that's really cool about this cash flow now is it's substantially larger than it was before because rents have increased drastically on this particular property. What was renting for $950 when I purchased the property, I'm now renting this property for $2,550 every single month. Now, with that, my expenses have gone up, but not a lot. My mortgage, taxes, and insurance are $673. I set aside $306 every single month for general expenses and maintenance, which has been more than enough to cover all of the issues that we've run into. I also spend $153 on management every single month. So if you add up the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and all of those expenses, and you take them away from the rents that I have coming in every single month, I end up making $1,418 in cash flow on this property right now every single month. That puts me in cash flow for this year on track to make $17,016. So you can see where real estate really starts to pay off is after you've been invested in it over time. Originally, my yearly cash flow on this property was just around $6,000, and now it's over $17,000 in the year. That's way more than double the cash flow I originally started with. This has made it so that my cash flow is exponential. Every year I'm making substantially more on this property. Now let's talk about principal paydown and appreciation. And the reason I want to talk about both of those together is both of those are going into the bank that is your property. I currently only owe about $59,000 on the original loan that I took on this property. So you've got my $59,000. You also have my down payment of $24,750. We're going to take that and put it over on the side and now look at what the value of the property is today. After getting it appraised, it came in at $360,000. So let me show you the math on that. If we take the $360,000 that it's now worth, and we subtract $58,924 that I still owe, and subtract the $23,750 that was my initial investment, that leaves $277,326. This is money that is equity in my property, and that is all profit. That is money that I have made by just owning this property and its value increasing while I'm simultaneously paying off those principal payments to make it so that I've got $277,000 plus locked up in this property to where if I sold it tomorrow, all of that money would be in my bank. I'm sure a lot of you are saying, Chandler, why don't you sell the property? And honestly, I might at some point because they have other options for taxes to 1031 and take those losses that I've taken and move them into a new property. But realistically, I'm just going to wait until interest rates are back below where I currently have this at and refinance, put it back to where I only have 25% of the equity in there and I can pull that money out if I need it. The honest truth is, I don't really need it right now. I'm plenty happy with the cash flow that's coming in every single month with this property and my other properties. So it hasn't bugged me much to leave that equity locked up to where if I ever do need it, it's very easy for me to access by refinancing or selling the property. Finally, we have depreciation. And in depreciation, after doing some quick math, I've found that I've saved about $19,000 in money I would have had to spend on taxes that I didn't because I accelerated the depreciation on this property. So that's $19,000 that would have gone to the government that I was able to not pay to the government in a legal, safe way. So for some more fun math, if we add up the $277,326 with the $54,000 in cash flow, with the $19,000 in tax savings, I'd ended up making $350,326 on this property over the course of the last 9 years. If we do the math on that, that gives me approximately a 1,475% return on my money over the last 9 years. Or if you average that out, about 163% return on my money every single year. Now, I know that sounds absolutely insane, but this is why I love investing in real estate. And the best part about it is that return is only going to continue to get bigger because appreciation is going to keep happening, but appreciation is exponential because that 3 to 5% is on whatever your new value is. every single year. Same thing with your rents, same thing with your cash flow, same thing with all of these benefits that you're able to get from real estate. And so investing in real estate and holding on to it, even if you make the worst investment in the world, as long as you hold on to it long enough, it eventually turns into an incredible investment. With that being said, that might be a little bit of an overstatement, because if you invest in the wrong piece of real estate, it can take years before you get into the positive, which can drastically affect your returns. This is one of the biggest reasons that I created the Creative Cash Flow Club. This is a community of like-minded investors where you can come together, ask questions, get feedback, and be held accountable as you're chasing your next real estate deal. I have loaded this community with all of the courses, trainings, and tools that you could ever need to buy your first rental and to scale to 100 plus. Now, at this point in my real estate investing career, I now own 220 plus residential units. I've got close to 200 storage units. I have commercial space, and I have tons of cash flow that I've been able to create through investing in real estate. However, I'm not done, and I love being around like-minded people that continue to build my portfolio, and more importantly, I'd love to help you build yours. So if you're interested in joining our community, click the link in the description and we can help you get into that first rental. Or if you've already got it, we'd love to have you there to help you figure out whatever problems or pain points you've got so that you can scale to 100 plus. The other thing that's really exciting about this community right now is I just launched it this last week. So right now, if you use the link in the description, you can still get 50% off and join the community for way cheaper than you ever will be able to in the future. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, remember to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell. And if you'd like to know what I make on all of my rentals, I might be open to making that video, but I need your feedback in the comments. You can kind of do the math. This was with 2 units. I've got 220 plus now. I also have just shy of 200 storage units and a bunch of other commercial buildings. And so if you want to see how the math pans out on all of those properties, like I showed you on this one, let me know in the comments and we'll see if it's worth making that video as well. Thanks so much, guys, and have a great day.